So last time we looked at different ways that we could apply Evernote in our personal lives in different scenarios and situations. So in this session, we're going to look at how to apply Evernote in the context of a profession. And I'm going to choose the profession of educator or teacher. It's the one that I know best, but also I think it has the widest range of applications in that teachers are responsible for anywhere from 100 to 150 students at a time. So they have to manage those students. They have to provide information from those students. They have to receive information, distribute information. They have to be liaisons between parents and the community, the administration. They have to collaborate in teams. There are a lot of different hats that a teacher or an educator has to wear at any one time. And so I think that although this is an educational example, because of the many hats that a teacher wears, I think anyone in business could look at these examples and then by analogy apply them to their situation, whether they're managers or workers in a team or whatever. So we'll start with the this is a tech demo account, and what we're looking at here are a series of notebooks, and these should be familiar to you by now, at least how to create notebooks. And so if you are part of a collaboration team, whether you're an administrator, a teacher, or whether you're part of a team in a business, you could set up a notebook and call it the admin team. You could call it the science team. You could call it the research and development team, the marketing team, whatever group you're in. You can have a notebook that each team member has access to and has the ability to contribute to. And this serves as a sort of digital town hall or a digital conference room, if you will, almost. And anything that you guys are working on can go in this notebook and be shared and immediately accessible to you. Now, from a teacher's point of view, some of the types of notebooks that you might want to set up would be a notebook called a course syllabus, course documents, things of that sort, and you'd want to share these with your students. And so that's what I've done here. And basically, I'm very lucky because I only have a couple students. But one thing to notice is that I've set the permissions on these to be view notes, not modify notes. And so you got to be careful that when you're setting up a notebook, who are you sharing it with and what sort of access and what sort of permissions do you want the people you're sharing with to have? If I'm sharing course syllabus, things like that, documents for the class with students, or if you're a manager maybe and you're sharing documents with your team members, you may not want them to be able to modify those documents, but rather you just want them to be able to have access to them. In those cases, you'll want to set up the permissions as view. Now, you've got homework, which would be a similar situation, and literature as well. Now, what you're looking at here, you've got the STU Demo A and STU Demo B projects. What these are two student notebooks that the students have shared with me as the teacher. But again, by analogy, if you have team members, if you're an administrator, or if you are a supervisor or a project manager in a business or a team setting, you may have notebooks where you're asking your team members that you're responsible for to share a notebook with you so that you can see the work that they're making available and provide feedback to them on that. So that's what these are. And the way this would work is obviously if the students put information, if they put documents and homework papers and things in these notebooks, I, as the teacher, would immediately be able to see those. Okay, so let's go and let's take a look at notes a little bit. And let's think about what would be some situations that you might be able to use Evernote in. So here we just have our regular notes. And one thing, obviously, that you're doing every day is you're evaluating performance. You're evaluating participation. So you may have a note where you have your student roster, and then you have a matrix for their participation or their class performance or whatever it is you're measuring them on. And keep in mind that because these Evernotes are available to you not just on your laptop, but they're available on your iPad or your iPhone or your other smart tablets and smartphones, you can walk around with these. So you can have this note available to you, and you're not tied to the front of the room. You're not tied to your desk. You're not tied to the lectern. You can walk around the room, and anybody knows that's taught that if you're walking around and intermingling with the students, that in itself changes the dynamics of the behavior. So it's a very handy thing to be able to be freed from one position in the classroom, but still have access to your notes and to the charts and things like that that you may be marking down grades and performance and things like that in. Field trips. Everybody goes on field trips, and everybody has field trip forms that they have to fill out, and you have to accept them back. So you can have field trip forms and then have each of your students listed, and then if the student turns it in, you can check it off. We've already seen how to set reminders. So for a field trip form, those have to be turned in by a certain date in order for you to be able to go on the field trip. So those things could be, you could set a reminder and set a day for the field trip forms and for all of these checks to be completed. Then you have things like roster, which you could use for attendance. And again, because you can put this on your iPhone or your iPad, you can walk around, and as you're walking around checking on other things, you can also check attendance, mark whatever it is off that you're checking. So those are just a couple ideas, and I'm sure you can think of many more creative ways that you could create notes and lists and checklists and things like that. Now, what we have here is a couple assignments, poems, and these are in the literature folder. And so you can imagine that if you're getting ready to teach a section on poetry, and maybe you are reading William Carlos Williams as an example, you have the poem here that you're going to be presenting to the class. Now remember, there's a couple things that we can do. We can add information to these poems. So for instance, or we can add information to any note. So as part of your lesson, you may want to not only present the text, but you might also want to add a document where you can actually hear someone reading the poem. So let's do that now. So we'll click on our little attached file paperclip, and we'll go to our desktop and we'll find the William Carlos Williams, and we're going to open this up and attach this. Okay, so now we have this file attached, and when we're presenting this to the class, we can double click on the file and play it so the class can actually hear William Carlos Williams reading his own poem, and that'll provide a richer experience. Now, don't forget also, we can use web clippings and bring in other articles and things from the web. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so here we have a poets.org site, and here's some articles about William Carlos Williams. So we can click on our web clipper. And by the way, I'm now in the Safari browser, so to give you a little different look of what this looks like. It's very similar to the Chrome one. So again, we could take the article, we could take the full page if we wanted to. We'll stick with the article, that's fine. And then we want to make sure that this is going to go into our literature notebook. And we can even tag this with William Carlos Williams and click Save. And then it will sync, and we can close this up. Now, here's a Wikipedia article, And this is actually a critical analysis of this is just to say. So this might be informative as well. So let's go ahead and clip this. We'll leave everything the same, and then we'll click Save, and then close that out. So while we're here, so here we have an article about Katrina and beyond, and it's actually different articles, all from the NPR website. But let's go ahead and let's clip some of these. So we can either clip the article or we can clip the full page. And we can save this. And it's synced up, so we can close it up. And we'll close this, and we'll go back to our Evernote. Make sure everything is synced. So we will look at our notes, okay? So here we have the article about William Carlos Williams, the analysis of the poem. Here we have the article about William Carlos Williams himself, basically a little bio and more. And then this is the NPR article. So with this, we could also attach something. So I'm going to click on the little attach paperclip. And what I have here is an NPR radio show recording about Katrina. So I'm going to open that up and attach it. So if I was putting together a lesson or a presentation about Katrina, I would have an article. I could have radio broadcasts, multimedia presentations that provide a much richer lesson for the students. So with that, we will stop for a second, and then I'm going to switch over to one of the student accounts so that you can see what this looks like from a student perspective.